You've been trying, haven't you? You've been pushing, striving, and grinding, but it still feels like something is missing. The harder you try, the further success slips away. You've been told that success is about discipline, but it feels like an endless battle. You try to stay consistent, to follow the rules, but something inside you keeps resisting. It's as if discipline is an impossible mountain, constantly taunting you from the top. You've been chasing it for so long, but it's still not coming. The truth? You've been taught all wrong. You've been given half the story. It's not about forcing yourself to follow a rigid path. It's about unlocking something deeper, something far more powerful. You've heard it 1,000 times. Discipline is about doing what you don't want to do. It's about pushing through, gritting your teeth, and forcing yourself to work, even when every fiber of your being screams for rest. You've been told that real discipline requires willpower, that it's about forcing yourself to act against your own desires, your own natural inclinations. You've tried, haven't you? You've woken up early, dragged yourself through the day, and forced yourself to stay on track. You've pushed through exhaustion, guilt, and frustration, thinking that if you just keep forcing it, you'll eventually find success. And yet, despite all your effort, something doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel sustainable. It doesn't feel aligned. You find yourself burning out, running on empty, and feeling disconnected from the very thing you thought you were working toward. This isn't discipline. This is survival. You see, the myth that discipline is about forcing yourself to do what you don't want to do is one of the most damaging beliefs we've been fed. It's the belief that you have to sacrifice yourself in order to achieve something worthwhile. It's the idea that your desires, your energy, your needs don't matter. Only the end result does. But what if discipline isn't about sacrifice? What if it's not about forcing yourself to do something that feels wrong or exhausting, but instead about aligning your actions with your true desires, your authentic purpose? This is where everything changes. Discipline isn't about doing things you hate. It's about doing what aligns with who you are at your core, with the person you know you can become. It's about creating habits and structures that serve you, not sabotage you. True discipline comes from a place of passion, of purpose, not from a place of self-punishment. It's about cultivating the strength to follow through on your commitments, not by force, but because they resonate with you. It's about integrating your dreams and desires into your daily actions, so that each step you take brings you closer to the life you've always wanted. Think about it for a second. When you're doing something you love, something that excites you, something that's aligned with your purpose, does it feel like a struggle? Does it feel like you're forcing yourself? Or does it feel natural? Does it feel like you're in flow, that everything is coming together effortlessly? The truth is, real discipline feels like that. It's not a fight against yourself. It's a partnership with your deeper desires, your passions, and your goals. So why do we keep believing that discipline is about willpower? Because that's what we've been taught. We've been taught that success is about pushing through discomfort, ignoring what we truly need, and sacrificing our well-being for the sake of accomplishment. But this only leads to burnout, frustration, and disconnection. It leads to working harder, not smarter. It leads to exhaustion, not fulfillment. What if I told you that the real key to discipline is not in forcing yourself, but in tuning into what matters most to you? What if the path to success isn't about pushing yourself to do things you dread, but about finding the things that light you up and making them a natural part of your routine? Imagine waking up each day excited to take action, not because you have to, but because you want to. Imagine your actions being fueled by your passion, by your vision of the future, not by guilt or obligation. This shift in perspective is powerful, and it's the key to cultivating a discipline that lasts. When you align your actions with your deepest desires, when you start to view discipline as a tool that supports your vision rather than a burden you have to carry, you will begin to experience a sense of ease, purpose, and fulfillment. You will no longer feel like you're forcing yourself into submission. You will feel like you are flowing toward your goals, each step taken with intention and clarity. But it's not just about the big picture. It's also about the small moments, the daily habits that accumulate over time. When you're aligned with your true desires, when you're doing what feels right for you, the small steps don't feel like burdens. They feel like progress. You begin to trust yourself, your decisions, and your ability to stay committed. You build momentum, not because you're forcing yourself, but because you're in sync with your authentic self. I know this might feel like a hard shift to make. After all, we've been conditioned to believe that discipline is about sheer willpower, about doing the hard stuff no matter how much we resist it. But think about how long you've been fighting against yourself. Think about how much energy you've spent resisting things that didn't feel right, things that drained you instead of fulfilling you. Is that really working for you? Is that really the kind of discipline that leads to lasting success? Here's the truth. True discipline is sustainable. It doesn't wear you out. It doesn't make you feel like you're constantly battling against your own desires. Instead, it brings you into alignment with your life's purpose. It transforms your daily actions into steps toward fulfillment, not exhaustion. When discipline comes from within, when it is aligned with what you truly want, it becomes a source of strength, not a source of pain. So the next time you feel like you're forcing yourself to do something, pause. Ask yourself, is this aligned with who I am? Is this in harmony with my values and my goals? If the answer is no, then it's time to stop pushing through and start shifting your perspective. Find a way to connect your actions with your true desires. Make discipline a natural extension of who you are, not something you force yourself to do. When you stop fighting against yourself, when you start building discipline from a place of alignment, everything changes. You no longer have to force it. It becomes effortless because you're doing what you love, what matters to you, what brings you closer to your purpose. And that is where true discipline comes from, when it's rooted in passion, purpose, and the natural flow of your life. You've felt it before, haven't you? The rush of motivation, that electrifying burst of energy that surges through you when you set a new goal. It feels almost like you're invincible, like nothing can stop you. The first few days are easy. You wake up excited. You dive into your work with intensity, focused and driven. But then slowly, something changes. That spark of motivation begins to fade. The energy isn't there anymore. You wake up and it feels harder to get started. You tell yourself, I'll get back to it tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. And just like that, you're back to where you started. You've been here before, right? You've been high on motivation, only to crash when it fades away. And you're left wondering why it's so difficult to stay on track, why the excitement doesn't last. It's frustrating, isn't it? You start to doubt yourself. You think, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe I'm not as committed as I thought. But the truth is, motivation alone isn't enough. It never was. Motivation is like fuel. It burns brightly for a while, but it's temporary. It doesn't sustain you in the long run. You can't rely on that fleeting rush of excitement to carry you through the hard work, the grinding hours, the moments when things aren't going your way. Motivation will get you started, but it's discipline that keeps you going. Discipline is what allows you to show up even when you don't feel like it. It's the foundation that holds everything together when the high of motivation starts to wear off. You've probably experienced this cycle countless times. You get excited, you push forward, and then, when the novelty wears off and the real work begins, you're left with nothing but your own willpower. And if that willpower isn't strong enough, you give up. But this isn't a failure of you. This is a failure of relying solely on motivation. The problem is that motivation is external. It comes and goes based on how you feel, your environment, your circumstances. And when it fades, you're left with nothing but the task itself. And that's where the true challenge lies, when the initial excitement is gone, when there's no longer a rush of energy pushing you forward. That's when you have to rely on something deeper, something more lasting. Discipline is that deeper force. It's the ability to keep moving even when the excitement is gone. It's the willingness to continue showing up, even when things aren't easy, even when you don't feel motivated. Discipline is about building a structure for your success, a routine that supports consistent action, even on the days when motivation feels like a distant memory. But how do you build that discipline? How do you create the structure that will carry you through when motivation fades? It starts with a shift in mindset. You have to stop seeing motivation as the driving force. Start seeing it as just the spark. The real fuel is consistency. It's creating small, manageable steps that you can take every day, even when you don't feel like it. It's building habits that support your goals, not based on how you feel, but on what you've committed to. This is where most people struggle. They expect motivation to keep them on track, but motivation is unpredictable. Some days you'll feel fired up, and other days you won't. The key is to build systems and routines that don't rely on your emotional state. You have to learn to trust in the process, not in the rush of motivation. Think about it this way. When you build a habit, it becomes automatic. You don't need to wait for motivation to show up. You just do it. You build the habit of writing, of exercising, of working on your goals because it's part of your routine, not because you feel like it. And over time, that consistency becomes your driving force. It becomes the foundation you can rely on, no matter how you feel. This is where the true power lies. Motivation will come and go. But when you have discipline, when you have built a system that works for you, when you've created habits that support your success, you don't need motivation anymore. You just show up. You keep going. And eventually you realize that the thing that once felt hard becomes second nature. Building this discipline takes time. It's not about forcing yourself to do something you hate. It's about creating a routine that works for you, that becomes part of your life. It's about knowing that success doesn't come from a single burst of energy, but from the consistent, steady work that you do every day. So, stop relying on motivation to drive your success. It's fleeting. It's unreliable. But discipline is something you can count on. It's the thing that will keep you moving forward, even when motivation is nowhere to be found. Discipline is what turns goals into achievements. It's what separates those who start from those who finish. The real secret is learning how to create that structure for yourself. It's building small, sustainable habits that you can stick to no matter what. When you do that, you stop waiting for motivation to hit you, and you start moving forward because you've built a system that supports your success. You're no longer at the mercy of your emotions or circumstances. You're in control, and that's when everything changes. Because when motivation fades, you won't be left wondering if you're still capable. You'll keep going one step at a time, because that's what discipline does. It doesn't rely on how you feel. It just keeps pushing you forward, day after day. And that's what turns your dreams into reality. You've been fighting it for so long, haven't you? Discipline. It feels like a constant battle, like a war between what you know you need to do and what your mind or body is telling you to do. You've tried forcing yourself, getting up earlier, making promises you don't keep, pushing yourself to work when you're exhausted. You tell yourself, I'll do better tomorrow. I'll stay on track, no matter what. But when tomorrow comes, the fight starts again, and you're left feeling drained, frustrated, and like you're not making any progress. You begin to wonder, is this really how it's supposed to be? You've been taught that discipline means fighting against your natural inclinations, pushing through every ounce of resistance. But what if that's not the truth? What if discipline doesn't have to feel like a constant struggle? What if the secret to discipline isn't forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do, but making it feel natural, effortless, a part of who you are? You see, the real key to lasting discipline is alignment. It's about creating systems and habits that serve you, habits that feel so integrated into your life that you no longer have to think about them. When you align your actions with your goals and values, discipline becomes a natural part of your routine, not a battle you fight every day. It doesn't feel forced because it's in harmony with who you are, with where you want to go. Think about something you do every day without thinking. It might be brushing your teeth, getting dressed, or having your morning coffee. You don't force yourself to do these things. You don't make a big effort to brush your teeth or to put on clothes. It's simply part of the flow of your day. You've done it so many times that it's automatic, almost like second nature. That's the kind of discipline you can create for yourself. Something that fits into your life so seamlessly that it doesn't feel like a struggle. But getting there requires understanding that discipline isn't just about willpower. It's about building a system that supports your goals, that makes consistent action the natural thing to do. And that starts with small, intentional choices. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the idea of discipline, especially when you think it means adhering to a strict routine, following a rigid set of rules, or forcing yourself to push through when you're mentally and physically exhausted. But real discipline isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about building a life that makes discipline feel like the path of least resistance. Start by simplifying your habits. Instead of trying to overhaul everything at once, begin with small, manageable actions that align with your larger goals. It's like learning to walk before you run. Focus on one thing you want to change or improve, and break it down into the simplest possible steps. Want to exercise more? Start by adding 5 minutes a day, not an hour. Want to work on a project? Set aside 10 minutes each morning, just to get the momentum going. These small steps taken consistently start to add up. And over time, they become part of the rhythm of your day. Here's the thing. When you try to force yourself into a rigid routine that feels unnatural, you're fighting against yourself. You're creating friction that makes discipline feel like an uphill battle. But when you build habits that align with your natural rhythms, you don't have to fight yourself anymore. You move through your day with purpose and consistency, because what you're doing feels right, not forced. But it's not just about the small steps. It's also about why you're doing them. If your actions aren't aligned with your deeper values, they'll always feel like a fight. If you're trying to force yourself to do something that doesn't resonate with who you are or what you truly want, it's going to feel like resistance. That's why it's so important to get clear on what matters most to you. What do you want to achieve? And what is driving you beyond just external rewards or approval? When you connect your actions to your deeper why, discipline becomes easier. It stops feeling like something you have to do and starts feeling like something you want to do. The power of this shift is incredible. When your actions are aligned with your purpose, you stop thinking of discipline as a burden. You start seeing it as the bridge that connects where you are now to where you want to be. You begin to trust the process because you know it's taking you in the right direction. The next step is to build accountability, but in a way that doesn't drain you. Find small ways to hold yourself accountable that feel natural. It doesn't have to be a big external pressure, just something that keeps you connected to your goals. Maybe it's checking in with a friend, journaling about your progress, or setting a reminder for yourself each day. The key is to build systems that support you, that remind you of your purpose, and that keep you moving forward without overwhelming you. Discipline doesn't have to be a fight. The fight is in trying to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit. The ease comes when you stop resisting the natural flow of your life, when you align your actions with your values, and when you start making small choices every day that move you in the direction you want to go. That's when discipline feels effortless. That's when it becomes part of your rhythm. But here's the catch: you have to be patient. This isn't an overnight transformation. You won't wake up tomorrow with perfect discipline. You'll fall, you'll stumble, you'll have days when you don't follow through. But that's part of the process. Don't let a single setback derail you. Don't let it make you believe that you can't do it. Just keep moving forward, even if it's small, even if it's one tiny step at a time. Over time, these small steps will become second nature, and discipline will no longer feel like something you have to force. So let go of the fight. Stop trying to force yourself into a rigid routine. Start building discipline from the inside out by aligning your actions with your values, creating systems that support you, and taking small, consistent steps. When you do this, discipline becomes a natural part of who you are. And that's when you stop striving and start living with purpose. You know what resistance feels like, don't you? The tight, heavy feeling in your chest when the work piles up, the doubt creeps in, and the obstacles seem to stand taller than ever before. Every fiber of your being says, stop, don't go any further. Resistance doesn't announce itself in a calm voice. It's a loud, relentless roar that stops you dead in your tracks. It's the voice that whispers in your ear, telling you that you're not enough, that you can't do it, that this journey is too hard, too long, too complicated. It convinces you to quit before you even start. How many times have you wanted to give up? How many times have you stared at the path ahead, feeling overwhelmed by the mountain you need to climb, and felt like turning back would be easier than continuing forward? Resistance is inevitable. It's part of the process. It's the invisible force that seems to rise up whenever you're pushing towards something important, something that will take you to the next level. The question isn't if resistance will show up, it's when. But what if everything you've been taught about resistance is wrong? What if instead of running from it, avoiding it, or letting it stop you, you could learn to embrace it? What if you could see resistance as the gift it truly is? A powerful force that propels you forward instead of keeping you stuck. The truth is, resistance is not your enemy. It's not something to be afraid of, nor something to fight with all your strength. Resistance is a teacher, a guide that shows you exactly where you need to grow. It points out the areas in your life that need healing, the weaknesses that need strengthening, the fears that are holding you back. Resistance is there to show you what you need to confront, what you need to overcome. When you resist resistance, you're only giving it more power. You're making it harder on yourself, fighting against something that was always meant to be there. But when you learn to stop fighting and start leaning into it, you unlock a new level of power. Instead of being drained by resistance, you use it as fuel. It's like lifting weights. The more resistance you face, the stronger you become. But how do you make that shift? How do you turn resistance into something that pushes you forward instead of holding you back? It begins with a shift in mindset. You've been taught to view resistance as a wall, a barrier to your success. But resistance isn't a wall. It's a doorway. It's the signal that you're on the verge of something important. It's the moment right before the breakthrough. When you feel resistance, that's your cue to press forward, to lean in, and to keep going. It's a sign that the work you're doing is real, that you're actually moving toward the growth you've been craving. Think about the last time you faced something difficult, something that made you want to quit. Maybe it was a project that seemed too big, a goal that felt too far out of reach, or a personal challenge that seemed insurmountable. But what happened when you pushed through? What happened when you chose not to let resistance stop you? The moment you decide to embrace resistance, to stop seeing it as something you need to avoid, that's when the magic happens. You begin to see resistance not as a threat, but as a signpost, pointing you toward what's next. The resistance becomes the fuel you use to keep moving, to push further, to grow stronger. Now, this isn't easy. Resistance feels heavy. It feels like it's pulling you back when you want to move forward. It feels like the universe is conspiring against you. But in reality, resistance is just the universe asking you one question. How badly do you want this? It's testing your commitment, your willingness to fight for what you want. And in that moment, when you feel the resistance, you get to choose, will you let it stop you, or will you use it to fuel your fire? Here's the thing. Every successful person you've ever admired, every person who has achieved greatness, has faced resistance. They didn't avoid it. They didn't pretend it wasn't there. They learned how to use it. They turned it into their motivation, their strength, their momentum. They allowed resistance to show them what they were capable of. And in doing so, they became stronger than they ever imagined. You're not weak for feeling resistance. You're not failing when you encounter obstacles. You're not falling short because things feel hard. Hard is normal. Difficult is normal. Growth is always uncomfortable. Resistance means you're on the right path. It means you're doing something that matters. It means you're pushing past your limits, stretching beyond what you thought was possible. And it means you're ready for what comes next. This is where you find your power. In the moments when you feel like giving up, but you choose to keep going. It's in the moments when resistance is at its strongest. But you decide to use it as your fuel, to propel you forward instead of holding you back. You are stronger than the resistance. You are more powerful than the obstacles in your way. You've already proven that you can keep going, even when it's hard, even when the world feels like it's against you. And every time you face resistance and push through it, you get stronger, wiser, and more capable. You don't need to avoid resistance. You don't need to fear it. You just need to shift your perspective. You need to see it for what it is, an opportunity to rise, an invitation to become more than you ever thought possible. So the next time resistance shows up, don't run from it. Don't try to escape it. Don't let it hold you back. Embrace it. Use it. Let it push you further than you've ever gone before. Because every moment you face resistance and choose to move forward is a moment that shapes you into someone unstoppable. And that is the person who will achieve everything they've ever dreamed of. You've tried, haven't you? You've set goals, made promises to yourself, and told yourself that this time will be different. But somewhere along the way, things fall apart. You find yourself slipping back into old habits, losing track, and feeling like you failed again. You can't figure out what went wrong. You ask yourself, why is this so hard? Why can't I just stay on track? It's frustrating. It feels like you're stuck in a loop, trying to build discipline but always missing something. You look at others who seem to have it all figured out, their routines, their structure, and you wonder why you can't seem to follow through. But what if the problem isn't with your willpower? What if the problem is with something deeper, something that's always been there, right beneath the surface waiting to be acknowledged? True discipline begins with understanding yourself. Without self-awareness, it's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You can lay down bricks, you can put up walls, but they'll never align properly. They'll never serve the purpose you want them to. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to follow someone else's rules or sticking to a rigid schedule. It's about creating a structure that works for you, based on your strengths, your weaknesses, and your unique needs. The reason you keep falling short isn't because you're not disciplined enough. It's because you don't fully understand yourself. You don't understand why you act the way you do, why certain things trip you up, why you can't seem to stay consistent until you know these things. Your discipline will always feel like an uphill battle. You'll keep trying to force yourself into someone else's mold, and that's never going to work. You need to build your own mold. Think about it. When you're aware of your own patterns, your tendencies, your triggers, you can finally take control. You begin to see where things tend to go wrong, where you self-sabotage, where you lose motivation. You start to realize that certain situations, certain environments, or certain people pull you off track. You start to understand what makes you weak, what makes you strong, and how to leverage both. But self-awareness isn't just about recognizing your weaknesses. It's also about embracing your strength. You know, the parts of yourself that come naturally to you, the things you're good at, the things that fuel you. Self-awareness gives you the power to build discipline around those strengths, rather than forcing yourself into areas that drain you. Imagine designing a life that plays to your strength, where discipline doesn't feel like a struggle, but something that flows naturally from who you are. That's possible. But it begins with understanding yourself, truly and deeply. This might be hard to hear, but if you don't take the time to understand what makes you tick, you'll keep hitting the same walls. You'll keep feeling stuck, like you're not moving forward, even though you're working so hard. You might get motivated for a few days, even a few weeks, but without self-awareness, that motivation will fizzle out. You'll burn out, fall off track, and start over again. It's a cycle that feels endless. And you know what? It's not your fault. You've just been trying to build discipline without the foundation of self-awareness. It's time to change that. It's time to take a step back and really ask yourself, who am I? What do I need in order to stay disciplined? What makes me tick? What holds me back? You can't expect to build lasting habits, lasting discipline, until you know the answers to these questions. Because when you understand yourself, when you know your triggers and your strengths, discipline becomes much easier. It becomes a tool you can use to shape your life, instead of something that feels like an impossible burden. Let's take a moment to be real. Building discipline is hard, but it's harder when you don't know why you're struggling. It's like trying to fix something when you don't understand how it works. Self-awareness is the key that unlocks the door. When you know what makes you tick, when you understand your weaknesses, your tendencies, and what drives you, you can design a routine that actually works for you. You can build a system that accommodates your natural inclinations rather than fighting against them. For example, if you know that you're prone to procrastination, you can set yourself up for success by breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps. If you know that you get distracted easily, you can design an environment that minimizes distraction. If you know that you need a reward system to stay motivated, you can build that into your routine. It's about creating a structure that supports you, not one that works for someone else, but one that aligns with who you are. But this isn't just about making excuses for yourself. Self-awareness also means facing the parts of yourself that are holding you back. It's about recognizing when you're sabotaging your own progress, when you're letting fear or doubt control your actions, when you're giving in to instant gratification instead of long-term growth. Understanding these patterns isn't about self-judgment. It's about taking responsibility. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And here's the breakthrough. Once you start to understand these things, once you start to truly know yourself, you gain the power to change. You stop fighting against yourself. You stop trying to force yourself into someone else's idea of discipline. You build your own path. And when you do that, when you align your actions with your true self, discipline stops feeling like a fight. It becomes a natural part of your life, a tool that supports you, that helps you become the person you know you can be. The beauty of self-awareness is that it doesn't require perfection. You don't need to be perfect to build discipline. You just need to know yourself. You need to understand where you struggle, where you shine, and how to create an environment that supports your growth. Discipline isn't about doing everything right all the time. It's about building a structure that works for you and learning how to keep going, even when things don't go as planned. So take a step back and get curious about yourself. Ask the hard questions. Look at the patterns in your life, your habits, your triggers, and your strengths. Understand why you do what you do, and then design a life that aligns with your answers. When you do this, you won't just be building discipline. You'll be building a life that works for you. A life that's not about forcing yourself, but about flowing with your own strengths, your own energy, your own purpose. And when you do that, discipline won't feel like something you have to do. It will feel like something you get to do. It will become a natural extension of who you are, and it will guide you toward the life you've always wanted. You know that feeling, the weight of your big dreams, the massive goals you've set for yourself, always hanging just beyond reach, the desire to get it all done, to achieve everything you've ever hoped for, to finally prove to yourself and everyone else that you can do it. So big, so important, that it almost feels like the pressure to succeed is suffocating. Every day you tell yourself, today is the day. I'm going to make progress. But as the hours slip by, you feel no closer to your goal, no closer to that elusive sense of accomplishment. And that's when doubt starts to creep in. You start wondering, is this worth it? Why am I even bothering? Why does it feel like I'm stuck? It's easy to get discouraged when the finish line seems so far away. But the truth is, that feeling of being stuck, of not seeing progress, isn't because you're not working hard enough. It's because you're looking at the mountain ahead and forgetting to notice the steps you've already taken. You're looking at the big goal, but not celebrating the small victories that will get you there. The problem is that we've been taught to focus only on the big wins. Society tells us that success comes from achieving something massive, something that stands out, something that everyone notices. It's about the big promotion, the title, the recognition. We think those are the moments that matter, the ones that define our journey. But here's the harsh reality. You'll never get to the big win if you can't appreciate the small ones. You'll never feel that sense of accomplishment if you're constantly pushing for the next big thing without recognizing the progress you've already made. That's where the power of small wins comes in. Small wins don't get the same attention. They don't always come with a loud cheer or a medal around your neck. They don't make for flashy headlines, but they are the building blocks of lasting success. It's the quiet, consistent steps that will get you where you want to go. And if you don't stop to appreciate those steps, you'll miss the beauty in the journey. I know it feels frustrating. I know it feels like you're putting in all this effort, and sometimes you can't even see the results. But I want you to understand something. Progress is progress, no matter how small. Every action you take, every time you move forward, no matter how tiny the movement seems, is part of the bigger picture. And those small actions, those small wins, are the ones that will keep you motivated, that will keep you moving, that will carry you through the toughest time. It's easy to get stuck in perfectionism, thinking that if it's not big enough or impressive enough, it doesn't count. But that's a trap. If you wait for the big wins to feel validated, you'll never feel validated, because the big wins take time. They require consistent effort, consistent progress, and you're never going to get there if you can't find joy in the journey. You have to learn to celebrate the small things. Maybe today you woke up earlier than you usually do. That's a win. Maybe you completed one task, no matter how small, that's been hanging over your head. That's a win. Maybe you got through the day without giving up, without allowing distractions to pull you away from your goals. That's a win. These small victories add up, and they are what will keep you going when the big goal feels too far away. You might be thinking, but what does a small win really do? I get it. It's hard to believe that one small victory could really make a difference when the bigger goal seems so far out of reach. But what you're missing is that these small wins are the fuel that keeps the fire burning. They're what keep you motivated when everything else feels impossible. They're what prove to you that you're capable. They're what build your confidence one step at a time. Here's the thing about the journey to success. It's never as fast as we want it to be. It's not a straight line. It's filled with ups and downs, with plateaus and setbacks. But each small win is like a light in the dark, a confirmation that you are still moving forward. And when you celebrate them, no matter how insignificant they might seem, you give yourself the momentum to keep going. You shift your focus from perfection to progress. And in doing so, you change the entire dynamic of your journey. You're building discipline every time you celebrate a small win. You're proving to yourself that progress matters, that the effort you put in is worthwhile, even if it's not producing the results you thought you would get. Each small win is a reminder that you can trust the process. It's a reminder that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. And when you learn to appreciate each step you take, you'll find that you've already come so much further than you realize. Now, I want you to think about this. What would happen if you started to celebrate your progress every single day? What if, instead of waiting for the big milestone to feel proud, you started to recognize the smaller moments, the ones where you showed up, where you took action, where you refused to quit? What if you started to see those as the victories they truly are? Here's the breakthrough. When you focus on small wins, you make discipline feel effortless. You stop relying on motivation because you've created a system that moves you forward no matter how you feel. Stop feeling discouraged because every small win is a step closer to your goal. You stop waiting for perfection and you start living in the reality that progress is enough. Progress is the foundation that will get you to where you want to go. You don't have to wait for the big wins. Celebrate the small ones. Let them fuel you, guide you, and remind you that you are on the right path. And when you look back, you'll see that those small wins were actually the moments that carried you through, the moments that gave you the strength to keep going. Those small wins were never small. They were the keys to your success. So take a moment today, right now, and recognize the small wins you've had. Recognize how far you've come. Even if the destination feels far away, you are moving forward, step by step, and that is enough. It always has been. There's a quiet voice inside you, isn't there? It's been there all along, whispering to you when you try to push forward and when you feel lost. It's a voice that's been drowned out by the noise of expectations, by the pressure to perform, by the constant pull of what others think you should do. And in the quiet moments when everything else falls away, you hear it again. What do I really want? What truly matters to me? It's hard, isn't it, to hear that voice clearly, to tune out the distractions of the world long enough to actually listen. It's so easy to get swept up in the endless to-do lists, in the grind, in the expectation that discipline is about following rules. Rules that are handed down to you by society, by your job, by the people around you. You think you need to just do in order to succeed, to meet deadlines, to follow routines, to check boxes. You think that's discipline. But deep down, you know that it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like you. So you keep pushing, you keep grinding, you keep following the rules. But something inside you starts to break. You begin to feel disconnected from the work you're doing, from the choices you're making. You wonder, why does it feel like I'm constantly fighting against myself? You begin to question, is this the life I truly want? Here's the truth. Discipline isn't about following someone else's rules. It's not about meeting expectations that were set for you or conforming to a mold that doesn't fit. Real discipline comes from a deeper place. It comes from within you. From understanding what truly matters to you, what your core values are. It comes from aligning your actions with your authentic self. Only then will discipline stop feeling like a battle. Only then will it start to feel like an expression of who you are. When your discipline is aligned with your values, everything changes. You stop living for other people's approval. You stop trying to force yourself into routines and habits that don't serve you, that don't resonate with your soul. You stop struggling. Instead, you begin to create a life of purpose, of alignment, where every action you take feels like a step toward who you're meant to be. But here's the thing, this shift requires you to get honest with yourself. It requires you to step back, to ask yourself hard questions, and to do the work of really discovering what matters to you. What are your values? What are the things that you care about? What's non-negotiable in your life? These are the questions that, when answered, will guide you toward a discipline that feels like a reflection of your truest self, not a set of rules you've been told to follow. I know this is difficult. I know that it feels easier to just keep going, to keep following the external path because it's familiar. It's scary to stop and look inward because the answers aren't always clear. They require you to challenge what you've been taught, to challenge the way you've been conditioned to think about success, work, and achievement. But you've been doing it all along, haven't you? You've been living by someone else's rules, either because you felt like you had to, or because you were afraid to break away. But here's what happens when you align your discipline with your values. Everything starts to feel different. The work that once felt like a chore becomes something that feels meaningful, something that excites you, because it's in line with who you truly are. You start to act from a place of purpose, not obligation. You begin to show up not because you have to, but because you want. And that's when the magic happens. I want you to think about this. When was the last time you felt truly energized by the work you were doing? When did you last feel connected to your actions? When everything you did felt aligned with your deepest self? It's rare, isn't it? It doesn't happen often. Because we're so busy trying to fit into someone else's idea of what we should be doing. But I want you to know that it's possible to create a life where that feeling of alignment is a regular part of your day. When your discipline is rooted in your values, you stop viewing it as a struggle. You stop looking at it as something you have to force yourself to do. Instead, discipline becomes a natural outpouring of your deepest beliefs and desires. It becomes effortless because you're no longer resisting it. You're no longer forcing yourself to be someone you're not. You're not trying to live up to anyone else's standards. You're living your own truth, and that's what makes the work feel meaningful. That's what makes the discipline easy. This doesn't mean everything will always be easy. Life will still present challenges. But when you live in alignment with your values, when you've built a discipline that reflects who you are, even the difficult moments feel worth it. You'll know that you're not just working to meet someone else's expectations. You're working towards something that's true to you. And that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you grounded, even when things get tough. This is the power of self-awareness. This is the power of discovering what truly matters to you. When you do that, you begin to build discipline that works for you. You begin to create routines and systems that support your goals, not someone else's. You stop living for approval and you start living for yourself. And when you do that, you realize something incredible. You don't need external validation anymore. You don't need someone else's approval to feel good about the work you're doing. You stop measuring your worth by how much you can produce or how perfectly you perform. Instead, you measure your worth by your ability to stay true to yourself, to live your life in a way that aligns with your values. So ask yourself today, what do I truly value? What is non-negotiable for me? When you find the answers, you'll begin to create a discipline that reflects those truths. You'll build a life of meaning, of fulfillment, of purpose. And in that life, you won't have to fight for discipline. It will come naturally because you'll be living in alignment with the most important thing in the world, your authentic self.